This is the first year where all the students have the iPads at school.
When they write their first code, I mean, game over.
Math, like beyond you could
stand to completely lose that advantage if we don't teach our own kids.
Many people will say that inner city girls can't do computer science.
They latch onto it like never before.
They don't necessarily know what's inside these tablets.
You know, that's an issue with Apple products in general.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the June episode of the Engadget Show. My name is Tim Stevens. I'm the editor-in-chief of Engadget.
And I'm Brian Heater, and we are standing in front of the American Museum of Natural History.
Or the Museum of Natural History.
It's true, this place was founded in 1869 before the vowel was discovered.
That's just one of the many true facts you will learn on this education-themed episode.
Yeah, we're going to talk to Google, we're going to talk to OLPC, we're going to see some iPads being used in the classroom.
We're going to go to the Department of Education, and we're going to learn how to code.
Yep, we'll be speaking with SparkFun, we'll be speaking with Adafruit. We're going to actually start things off with a trip to Chicago to level up. We'll be talking to Jackie Moore. She's teaching kids how to build robots. What better use of your time?
I can't think of one.
I could think of one. Watching this episode of the Engadget Show.
Juan Lopez. I'm an alumni of Chicago Knights. I think one of my aunts approached me, and they were at this point where they were trying to get me into a lot of different things, trying to let me branch out into different things. And robotics came up, and I was really interested in it. And from there, I just kind of latched onto the Chicago Knights.
My name is Jackie Moore. I work with the Chicago Knights robotics team. People are shocked when they discover that we're meeting in a mall. They all think it's kind of cool too. My background, purely software. I became very active in the school system as I decided that I needed to take charge of kids' education. Robotics answers so many of the problems that we're trying to address. So today we're preparing to go to the After School Matter South Region Showcase. So we'll go in, we'll set up, people will talk to us about what we're doing, we'll tell them about our projects. Our goal as a team is to try to show robotics is more than just the typical robots that people think about ourselves. It's an interesting mix because any demographic you can think of in the city of Chicago, and we have them all. The one thing they seem to have in common is that they want to make something with their hands. And on the very first visit, someone's gonna put something in your hands and say, I need you to help me do this. And the typical reaction is, what am I supposed to do with this? And generally, if they ask me that, I'll point to another student and say, help them out with that, and I walk away. What that does is that it takes away the stigma of not knowing, because now there's no teacher to please. There's no adult to determine whether or not you're doing it right or wrong. It's just a peer, someone your own age who's going to help you through the process. The best solution for education, in my opinion, is computational thinking. Computational thinking is not so much about doing things new as it is emphasizing those things that have value that students are doing already and showing them how to apply it someplace else. Many people will say that inner city girls can't do computer science. They don't think logically enough, they aren't focused enough. But have you ever watched a young girl cornrow? That's a very complicated pattern. There's an algorithm to doing that process. But we don't tell them it's an algorithm. We don't tell them it's a pattern. It's just braiding hair. So they don't think that they know how to do it. They see the words and they walk away. With robotics, they're constantly forced to cross those boundaries. You can't do just electronics. You can't do just programming. You can't just do just mechanical. You start to recognize that nothing happens in a vacuum. Not even technical stuff happens in a vacuum.
When we go to the competitions, it's sort of like a sports event where there are just a lot of people and everybody's full of energy and everybody's rooting for their team. I'm Judge, I'm a junior. Since I've been here, we've gone to first tech challenge, first robotics competition, and bot ball. Bot ball is completely autonomous, so you actually have to go and edit all the code. Being a wealthier team isn't necessarily that much of an advantage if you're able to be resourceful.
It's all the same game, and you see how what everybody's twist on it is. Like, oh, our shooter works this way. Oh, somebody else basically has the same idea as ours, but oh, theirs doesn't work as good as ours, or theirs works a lot better than ours. I think we hold our own for the resources that we have, for the team that we have, how we come together. I think that we do pretty well.
They decided which platform to actually use for each robot. So our students, we got a chance to learn C, they learned how to use LabVIEW, they learned to build with raw components, metal, aluminum parts, plastic parts, Lego parts, and how to intermix them all in various settings. There is no doubt in my mind that this could not have happened 10 years ago, because without the support of companies like SparkFun, like iRobots, without this maker movement, without this sudden realization that we need to mentor kids, without that collective mindset, it wouldn't have happened because it would have been too cost prohibitive. As the tools became easier to use, we discovered that mentors became easier to find. It's not just the students who don't know, the adults don't know. I consider myself a facilitator. To be honest, I still get a wrench and pliers confused when it comes to the names. And it's not because they look alike, it's because it's not important to me. What's important to me is to understand the big picture so I can help them learn. The less I know about the details, the more empowered they are and the more they have to do with themselves.
I've learned a lot. I got to meet some interesting people, a lot of fun experiences. I got to do a lot of traveling.
When I first joined the program, my mom was pretty happy about that. She liked that it's not exactly your typical program, like it's more intellectual and like you really have to put your mind to work in a robotics program.
By the time a kid leaves our relationship, the main thing that they all have is self-confidence. They suddenly understand that if they're willing to work hard, they can do almost anything. And that's really what colleges and employers are looking for. Can we put you in a situation, can you understand that situation, take appropriate risks, redirect your course if necessary, and accomplish something in the end.
Brian, we're standing in front of the Hayden Planetarium, which is this big sphere that right now, as far as I can tell, is full of school groups.
Yeah, there's children of all ages inside. This is where Neil deGrasse Tyson comes to watch Laser Zeppelin.
Oh, trippy.
We've been traveling to a lot of classrooms over the past month. We went down to Miami. We saw the OLPC laptops in action. We saw some iPads in the classrooms. We saw some Chromebooks. We're at a really interesting time right now. We're actually seeing people restructure the way kids learn based around these devices.
What sort of devices did you use in school, Brian?
Tim, I actually grew up in a time before technology.
Yeah, me too, I'm sad to say.
We had rocks and Apple IIes.
We had Commodore 64s in the mix as well, but yeah, Apple IIes were pretty common, and then the Mac Classic came in when I was in high school. That's how I learned word processing.
Word munchers changed it all.
Yeah, and Mavis Beacon as well.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Mavis.
My name is Rodrigo Arboleda, and I'm the chairman and CEO of One Laptop Per Child. We started in Colombia, my country of origin, by putting together the first education at a distance project. At that time, laptops were about $1,000 an app. What we decided at the time is, in order for us to break the ice, we need to be about 1/10 of the price. Now that the philosophy of one-to-one has been demonstrated and it is broadly accepted as a valid philosophy, it was not that easy to do it before. Nobody had measured until now things that come embedded with this type of laptops, which is inventiveness, exploration, attitude, self-esteem. And that's the way a child in New York can learn in the same manner than a child in Mali. If you can really embed in that child the passion for experimenting and for creating.
My name is Laura Tennant, and I'm the principal of Holmes Elementary. We are the first school in Miami to house 1 laptop per child. The percentage of students that have access to laptops at Holmes is about 90%. You know, personally, I have a 5-year-old child. You know, my 5-year-old can take an iPhone, knows exactly what to do with it and so forth. And so it's just a magnificent tool that I've seen the children here just totally, I mean, they grasp, they latch onto it like never before. And it's just so funny because you'll go on a field trip with students and so forth, and now they'll ask really weird questions like, I wonder how the road was developed and so forth. This is the age that we live in. This is the age that we're working in. I'm actually not surprised at all, and I just really feel like this has been something natural for teachers, you know, the next step.
Hypothesis, very good. Does anybody know what a hypothesis is? It's a beautiful vocabulary, but who can tell me what it means? What else do you think about when I say science?
Study of life.
Ecosystems, very good. Guys, repeat after me, please. Science is the study of everything. So if you guys think about everything. Unfortunately, these communities are the ones that are usually lacking because they don't have the access to the technology. They don't have the access to as many libraries, museums, field trips, real life experiences. So this helps to bridge that gap. What they can't go out and get, at least they have available at home a computer where they can do the research and bring it into the home. I've been at Holmes Elementary 2 years. I'm Mark Gauthier, I'm the science coach over here. We try to teach them as much as we can during class, but once they actually have time to do it on their own, it's usually 10-15 minute rotation before they have to make time for the next student. When they do have an opportunity to do free research, it's usually topics and ideas that they've heard about but haven't had the opportunity to really find out more about. How do human beings affect the ecosystem at the Everglades? We talk about life cycles, we talk about food chains, but we don't usually take it to modern, real life concepts, honestly, because of the shortage of time. With the direction that education's going in, where we have these benchmarks and objectives that we have to cover, it leaves us less leeway to go into those personal interests that kids might have. That's a big word. What do I mean when I say simulation? Simulation, guys, is when they have people try out things before they actually do it. Going back to our astronauts, instead of just throwing an astronaut in the space shuttle and hoping that he can survive when the space shuttle takes off, they'll put him in a simulator, spin him around and around and see how much pressure that they can take. You can put a print book in front of the child, and depending on the background, how much reading at home, you'll get different responses. Some kids are interested, other kids, it's another book. The beautiful thing about the EXO laptops is the fact that they're looking at a visual, they're following highlighted words as they're going through the story, the interest level is already higher. The teachers that are receiving them in middle school can already see the differences.
Well, this was the thinking process when we decided what the user interface would look like. And the idea that we came with was, what do you want to do and what do you want to be when you grow up? This is intended for a mother, for example, a single mother with 3 children that she works until 6 p.m. at night and the children get out of school at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. She goes to a Walmart store and says, what do I buy to my children so they can have a productive time while I am still working? How do I make sure that my children are going to have the correct type of tool? What we are trying to do is how to reach to children that otherwise will never be able to have access to knowledge. We have 220,000 laptops in Rwanda, and now we are going to 1 million. That's the next step in Rwanda. And you cannot imagine the transformation of that country in the past 5 years. That's the real issue. Have we transformed a society? Is this a transformational project or not? We are not interested in incrementalism. We are interested in scaling up and changing things. Because what we are doing here is teaching the child how to become an effective member of society and one that will produce wealth for the 21st century, which is very different to producing wealth for the 20th century. Wealth in the 21st century has a name, and it is called intellectual property. If you can create patents, if you can create ideas, you will create hundreds and hundreds of Facebook, Googles, or any of these other companies like Microsoft or Intel or whatever. That's the idea for the 21st century. What used to be a privilege 10 years ago or 5 years ago, today is a right.
I would be willing to say in 4 to 5 years, every educational institution is going to have some sort of one-to-one device, whether that's a tablet or a computer or whatever it is. There's going to be an electronic device in the hands of every single student in America very, very soon.
This is the first year where all the students have the iPads at school. My name is Peggy Lemak, and I'm an art teacher at Midi High School. I've been here this is my 22nd year. All their work, they're still doing the same kinds of projects. It just makes it easier that they have at their fingertips all the images in the universe, right? I would look at textbooks before and it would have tons of stuff that I either didn't agree with or had no use for. The textbook I created for the students' uses, it's about the elements and principles of art, which are the building blocks for all projects that they make. I'd say 98% of it's illustrated with student works of art. This way I could make one exactly how I want it for my classes. You can ask anyone. I'm not a big technologically advanced person. It was very user-friendly.
One of the most important things we realized many years ago, probably 7 years ago, was that the textbooks that we were using weren't as educationally powerful as the materials the teachers were creating. So we really wanted the teachers to start generating more materials. Day one was probably about 7 years ago, when we first envisioned the idea of every student having a device in the classroom, simply because we thought it was the best tool for the students to learn. We have our own version of a Genius bar. We call it the tech counter, and it's staffed by the tech team, which is made up of 20 students who do things that a normal Genius bar would do, teaching the other students how to fix something. They also do some basic repairs under the guidance of a couple of our Apple certified technicians. As it stands now, every teacher has every course online, so they take quizzes on there, they post to forums, they upload videos, they look at their course calendar. It's designed to be a way to continue the learning outside the walls of the classroom.
My name is Leslie Gracio, and I'm a biology teacher at Archbishop Midi High School. Lesson plans have changed having new technology, but I think in a better way. My role has changed in that I put more research onto them, which is really nice, where you can say, okay, now you're gonna do this project, go research it. Or that's a really interesting question where I used to have to go look for the answer. I can be like, who can find an answer? Let's look for reliable sources. The sensory neuron is gonna send that signal to where? The spinal cord, okay? So it hits the spinal cord. What neuron is there? Right, let's do the assessment on 1504. They can record live data onto their iPads, which is really nice in science. You can get pH and get temperature, and it's graphed, and then they can analyze it, write up their conclusions, and turn in these beautiful lab reports that have pictures from when they did it in class, their graphs, and all their written data. So you go across and across. They actually were the ones that showed me I could take a picture and insert it into the lab report. So really, them having more knowledge has been beneficial to me, because then they can teach me how to use it, and then I can integrate in all my classes.
Everybody's using the iPad. I mean, teachers have required us to, and everybody finds it a lot more useful. I'm Max Elfrink. I'm 16 years old. I go to Archbishop Midi, and I'm a sophomore. The majority of my work is on my iPad. I mean, I only use my notebook for when I practice Chinese, but other than that, it's bio note takers on the iPad, essays on the iPad, notes in class on the iPad. I mean, my iPad is really where all my schoolwork is.
I feel like teachers are more necessarily using PowerPoints to teach us now rather than just like straight up telling us the information. They're kind of like reading the PowerPoint stuff, and then like we're taking notes on our iPad, and then we're able to go back though and check them at home in case we miss something in class, which is really helpful because then we're not constantly emailing our teachers, okay, so what was this that we learned in class? Like we can go back and check the PowerPoints and check all this.
In some cases, the teachers are starting to experiment with something called a flipped classroom, where they do some of the lecture that would traditionally be done in the classroom at home, and then the classroom time is used more for working with the students individually. It's a different way of working, a different way of thinking about creating content and then being assessed on the content. Take your time is the most important lesson I could give anybody. You know, a lot of schools are looking to make a big splash and say, hey, we're the next iPad school, we have this great device. But the problem is they haven't thought about the educational impact of it. Simply putting the device in the hands of students isn't going to get you too much further than you are now. You need to take a few years and get your teachers ready, get the whole culture aware of what it means to have this device in the hands of every student.
I'm lucky I haven't broken mine yet. It's in great condition. I know a bunch of people that have, you know, dropped it and broken it. But that's, you know, that's an issue with Apple products in general.
My name is Rajan Chet, and I'm the Director of Products for Chromebooks and Chrome for Education and Business. When I joined Google, I joined in the enterprise group focusing on business and education, starting with Google Apps, and then moved to the Chrome group when we just first launched the CR48. With the CR48, one of the first things we did is we piloted it with about 4 or 5 school districts and tried to get the entire school district on it to see how this would work in schools, and it turned out it was a great fit. A lot of schools are looking into one-to-one, and we really are in the middle of this transformational shift in education. This kind of a shift, you know, is the kind of thing that happens only once every few decades. And it's that dramatic in terms of what a classroom is going to look like 5 years from now versus how it looks right now. And we're in the midst of that. And so I think that, combined with exactly the right product, made it such that Chromebooks were adopted very quickly.
All we started doing yesterday was exploring these curves.
Yeah.
Actually, didn't tell you much yesterday. I just wanted you guys to jump in and see what happens with these.
Okay. So technically we haven't, but it's all in the book. So
Right, but now we're sort of analyzing them a little more carefully. Like we know that circles have like no A value. It was like B cosine theta, B sine theta.
The biggest thing we're pushing up against is the status quo. And if you look at kind of how things are being taught in the classroom right now, or circa a couple of years ago especially, it's very similar to when I was in elementary school, and actually very similar to when my parents were in elementary school. You know, it's a teacher in front of a class lecturing about a topic, students taking notes, going home, reading a textbook, doing homework. That whole model can flip and can change with technology implemented correctly in the classroom. You can get much more towards individualized learning. You can get much more towards interactive learning where it's a collaboration between the teacher and the student. And so that's what I think technology really enables.
I mean, it's just become a tool that was very unique and very innovative and very exciting. Now they're really comfortable with it.
We've just implemented the Chromebook program this year, and so we've been working with them for the past year.
Our Director of Technology, Chin Song, really analyzed all the options, but the Chromebook is the dominant platform for us. It gives the teacher so much more flexibility.
My name is Ryan and I'm in 3rd grade. On these Chromebooks you get to learn more than you usually learn like in your standards like last year. I'm using them for the language arts and the math.
When they come to the Learning Lab, they're actually receiving customized learning instruction. And so they all have usernames and passwords to log into their programs. So the content that they use is set up by their teacher, their classroom teacher, and or by myself based on what they are learning. In some cases, the students will start out with a formative assessment, and that will give them a learning path. So in combination with what the teacher's doing in the classroom and what they're doing on their digital programs, they do receive a learning path.
It is really advantageous to be in a K-12 system. So we think about the progression of what does a preschooler need to gain, kindergarten, and then primary, elementary, intermediate. And the foundations are going to be built in the younger grades and younger years. Literacy, but technology skills. And so by the time we bring our kids into middle school and high school, we don't want them to think about the technology. We want them to think about what they're learning and what they're writing and what they're creating.
I would say the teachers are the ones behind the scenes. We're behind the scenes setting up the content for the students. When the students come here to the Learning Lab, it needs to be seamless. So it's like two-way. So I work with the teachers and to understand the content that their students will be using when they come to the Learning Lab. And then I make sure that what they're supposed to be working on is there.
Well, there's rotations in our school, and in math, I'm in the first rotation, and in ELA, I'm in the second rotation.
When we designed our blended learning model, part of it was our teachers would have, let's say, a maximum of 36 students in their class. So our class sizes went up, but it was designed so that the teacher would not have more than 24 students at a time. So they're responsible for 36 students, but at the time when they're teaching, they would have actually 12 students in a direct instruction environment, like a small group instruction. 12 students would be working independently on a collaboration project or an assignment by the teacher in the classroom. And then the other third of the teacher students would be here with me in the Learning Lab. And so this is how I tell the students, this is an extension of your learning. So if you're doing language arts in your classroom, and if you're working on phonics and letters and sounds, you will come here to the Learning Lab and you will be doing language arts, working on phonics, letters, and sounds as well.
The teachers would sometimes, the teachers teach us it, and then we go on it, and then, the teachers know what we do on it. So, when we, learn, scale and stuff, we go on here, and then we, go on Khan Academy and put up scale, and then it lets us do it. Khan Academy is basically a math program, and it has math beyond you could think.
We have the opportunity to customize the instruction that the students are working on. If their grade level says they should be here, but they're really performing there, then we can customize the instruction so that they can start here and then work up. Because we don't want the students to be frustrated at this level and then they can't get past the higher level. And then the students who are here, we have the flexibility to challenge those students. So we can customize their instruction and say, we can assign them content at a higher grade level. For our math students, they can expand into Khan Academy lessons that they're able to use to, I always like to say, take their learning to the next level.
Yeah!
We pretty much do almost everything online through Google Docs. I had students post their docs onto a student-created website. And so I'm checking their homework online through the website. I do what I call website checks, and I give them a checklist of everything that I'm looking for. My name is Diane Kung. I'm an English teacher with the Digital Business Academy here at Milpitas High School. I always try to connect every novel I teach to something that they're experiencing or something that's going around currently, because I think it's just important. I have them actually read articles online for homework, and then I have them post a response about it just to check their understanding for it.
I believe the Chromebook has really changed learning for me because it makes class really exciting, and the teachers mainly share presentations with you, so you don't really have to copy down the whole entire PowerPoint. You could just add on to notes when they're talking, so you can pay more attention to what they're adding onto it.
So far, the teachers have been doing everything they could have done on the computers. I mean, we don't take any tests or anything online. And that's probably the only thing that we do not do on the Chromebooks.
I've been watching how it changes our adult behaviors with workflow. We're using Google Docs constantly, and we could have an entire group of 40 management staff interacting collaboratively through a shared document. And the creative work that happens there is just as powerful, if not more powerful, because we're capturing the conversation as we communicate.
I always like to say that I am positive and I'm optimistic that yes, that what the students are doing here in the Learning Lab, it is helping them to be successful. We have our standardized test results coming out later in the summer, so we don't know yet, but based on our benchmark and our assessments that we've been doing so far, it seems that what the students are doing here in the Learning Lab is actually helping them, even based on the teachers who are comparing data from students' performance from digital performance based on the pencil and paper benchmark assessments. They are seeing improvements in the students. So I've had some teachers say, yeah, the Learning Lab is really helping them. So that makes me smile. So.
All right, we're here with Morgan. Morgan, we're standing in front of a very large machine. What is this large machine?
This is our CT scanner, which is essentially just a big fancy X-ray machine. When you take a couple thousand X-rays, you can reconstruct those into a CT.
How much of this is kind of off-the-shelf medical equipment, or is this specific for your needs?
This is purely industrial. So these are typically used by electronic companies and that sort of thing to quality test Blackberries or car parts, but of course we like to do things differently here and do something.
Yeah, what's this guy we're looking at?
So this is a mummified bat that was found in the south, and the cave was opened, and they discovered that it was about a couple thousand years since it had been opened, and they found these bats, so nobody knows anything about them.
So why do you need to see inside of something like this?
But they don't know what species it is, and so that will tell them if there's a different kind of bat that was in America at that time, or if this is a species that's been here for many years.
What other bits of machinery do you have around here for your research?
So we've got 2 scanning electron microscopes that are used in different ways by different departments, and we have a confocal laser scanning microscope that uses lasers, and we look at stardust on that.
We were excited because we found out you guys just got a 3D printer.
Yeah.
What do you guys?
I'm excited too.
What do you guys? We're excited for you. What are you guys going to do with that?
I mean, where do I begin? It can be used by so many different departments to visualize something that they've CT'd. So much of what we do is non-destructive testing. So I can put something in there and get you more information about it without having to slice it open or dissect it in some way. And so when you do that on the computer, I can give you a 3D print of something that, is priceless. It's the only one of its kind. And so now you can manipulate it and measure it. And,
So can you print me out this guy then?
Sure.
That's pretty cool. So speaking of 3D printers, we just went down to Adafruit.
It's true. They're doing some really cool stuff in the educational space. They've got a puppet show on YouTube, teaching kids how to build stuff with Arduino boards, lily pads, things like that. And we also went out to Boulder to talk to SparkFun. They're actually traveling around the country in an RV. They've got a 50-state tour, contiguous and otherwise, going to every single state, taking a day out of the curriculum and teaching kids how to build stuff with hardware.
Little hackers all around the nation.
Get ready.
Wonderful thing.
Coming for you.
I'm Lindsay Lepkoff. I'm the Director of Education here at SparkFun Electronics. The department started in January of 2011, and we've just been cooking since then, trying to get the technology into the classrooms. The Department of Education basically came out of the idea that if we can make technology more accessible and more affordable, that school systems would be able to adopt that, and we could sort of inspire students and kids all over the country and world, for that matter, to get their hands dirty, to play with stuff, to not be afraid to fail, and just hack and build. We were teaching classes to local people. We were kind of getting out at maker fairs, putting on soldering booths. And then I was working in production in 2009 and in 2010, and I saw this amazing technology coming out of the production line. And I thought about my own past, and I had taken the biological sciences route. I mean, there wasn't anything hands-on, I couldn't dissect anything. And so I'm looking at this technology that we're selling to kids, to engineers, and I thought, you know, if I had been exposed to that when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, even college and beyond, I think that might have changed my path. We started with boosting up our sort of headquarters offerings. So we started introducing more courses and workshops. We have a 5-day summer camp for geeks, basically, which takes people from napkin schematics, so you come with an idea, and we try to get you through to prototyping that idea in 5 days. Soldering classes, sewable electronics, all kinds of things, and then we decided, you know, it's time to try and expand this program a bit. And so we sponsored some people. People kind of reached out and said, we'll be the guinea pigs. We want to see this hardware. We want to get our kids soldering, building. And so it started just kind of this smattering of people all across the country, sort of just embracing this technology, you know, not being afraid of it. And then we sort of saw these flares happening, right? And we wanted to find a way that we could kind of unify the whole country. And so that was sort of spawned the idea of, like, what if we just traveled the country and exposed people to this technology? We're really excited. You can probably see the RV behind me. This is probably, you know, I had the dream that this would happen, and it still really boggles my mind that there's this wrapped, awesome-looking RV here at SparkFun that we're going to get to take on the road. The inside isn't that dissimilar from your average family's RV, but it's SparkFun, so the nature of the game is that it will be adapted to the DIY culture. Everybody is so committed to education at this company that they were willing to take the chance and see, you know, what happens if we do take an RV across the country. Can we just get this knowledge, can we get this technology into these communities and just sit back and see what happens? One of the big things that we focus on in the education department is, as much as we absolutely love to work with the students directly, we see the opportunity to work with educators as a way to actually reach more students. If we just go in and it's a classroom full of students, it's fantastic, and hopefully we make a change, you know, on those students, and then they'll go out and tell other people and tell their parents and friends. But we actually love working directly with educators, because if you can inspire an educator and make an educator feel comfortable and excited about this, I mean, that's generations of students, that's classroom after classroom. And so we didn't specify for the national tour whether it would be educators or students directly. We let the hosts kind of make that decision for themselves. And so we will be at hackerspaces, public libraries, various school districts, kind of across the board. And I think, you know, each stop is a little bit different. Sometimes it's a room full of kids, sometimes it's the educators. At some point, these educators have to be able to go back to superintendents, to their district level, and you know, prove to them basically that this is a worthwhile expenditure of scarce money, basically. And I think what we're seeing is, if you can have the opportunity to show somebody at that level what it looks like when a student lights up their first LED, or when they write their first code and it executes on a board and they can actually see something, it's done. I mean, game over. That tiny moment when they are entirely captivated by this thing that they just did pretty much wins over anybody at that level. But having the opportunity to do that is a bit rare. So we're looking for that sort of wildfire thing to happen where you get enough educators excited, you get enough district level people, state level people excited, that it just sort of becomes this national excitement.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Lamore Freed, and I'm founder and lead engineer of Adafruit Industries. We have a 12,000 square foot office here in lovely downtown Manhattan. It's where we do all sorts of design, development, we write tutorials, we ship kits. Pretty much everything Adafruit happens here in this office. One of the most important things about this company that I really like is that we not just teach people electronics and sell them, but we kind of combine those things together. So we're not just a company that writes a textbook, and we're not just a company that sells you a box of parts. We integrate that together. So we have tutorials on building wearable electronics or portable technologies, or Raspberry Pi or Arduino, any of these really popular educational platforms. We have all the accessories in the store, and we have a really great learning system where you can learn all about them.
My name is Becky Stern. I'm the Director of Wearable Electronics here at Adafruit Industries. Wearables is one of our big bets, right? So like Raspberry Pi, wearables, Circuit Playground. We really think that the future of hands-on learning electronics involves a lot of wearables. We can't escape technology anymore, right? Everyone has to be technologically literate to survive in this world and make a career and make the future brighter. So if we can tackle the interest in electronics from every different angle, then everyone will have some kind of knowledge of what electronics are about. So we try to look for the hook that'll get people interested, and if it's coming from gaming or coming from sewing or coming from traditional electronics, we try to provide projects that'll help spark people's interest to want to learn, and then we provide all of these resources and sample code and step-by-step tutorials so that we hold their hand along the way so they have a positive first experience with electronics, and then the sky's the limit, right? They're like, Mom, I want to be an electrical engineer.
We have to start younger and younger, because kids these days, they grow up with tablets, but they don't necessarily know what's inside these tablets. So even though you'll see kids nowadays with portable games or cell phones, we want to make sure that kids understand what's going on inside of these technologies. Unfortunately, right now, a lot of the technologies that we have are glued shut, and so that's why we're trying to open up this technology for everybody. I mean, we always suggest, if you want to learn how stuff works, to open as much stuff as possible, go to a thrift store and get a camera, a digital camera, and open it up to see what's going on.
For people who are active learners, you don't want to learn from a book or a website alone, hands-on learning is really where it's at.
What I really like about all the electronics that we do here at Adafruit is it isn't just for girls, and it isn't just for boys, it's for everybody. Everybody loves building this stuff.
We're here with Ellen Futter, the president of the American Museum of Natural History. And Ellen, thank you for taking some time for us and letting us into your office, which is very well decorated, I must say.
Thank you very much. I wasn't in charge of decorations, but I'm glad you're here.
You don't get to go out in the museum and pick woolly mammoths, bring them back here.
Woolly mammoth and I would not coexist here. So.
Now, we're doing an episode on education, so I wanted to talk with you about some of the education programs that you have here at the museum. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your programs here?
Well, we have, interestingly, we're a museum that's actually chartered, not only as a museum, but also as an educational institution. We're the only museum in the Western Hemisphere and one of only 2 in the whole world that actually is authorized to grant a PhD. And now we also have authority through the state to do a Master's of Teaching program here to give teachers a Master's in Teaching Earth Science. So we're a formal education institution, but we do a lot of other educating. One thing that's really interesting is how much educating here has changed. Today it is so informed by the new technology, by the digital world, and we have collections of about 32 million specimens and artifacts. And our goal is to take everything that's here, all of that, and share it with the public, not only when they're here, but also online.
We were walking around earlier and we saw the different classrooms, and I'm wondering, why it makes sense to have education, have classrooms be a part of the museum.
One of the things that we really specialize in is the power of reality. And that's the notion that the real thing, that would be the real T-Rex, is just about the most exciting, inspiring, curiosity-provoking kind of material for young people, and I would say for adults as well. I can't tell you how many times I've walked through the museum and seen a child say to a parent, "Wait, I've just got to see this."
I'm wondering if you feel like museums are competing with the internet right now, when you can kind of go out and get all that information. Do you have to stay a step ahead of the curve?
You know, it's a very interesting question because I think when the internet first came around, that was really the fear. How would this work? And I would say about across many sectors, not just the cultural sector. What would this mean if you could do everything from home? And we found actually the exact opposite, that when people see something that's exciting online, it makes them want to come and see the real thing. And so we've moved from any sense of concern over that to now thinking, actually, it's just one experience, and what our audience all over the world basically can do is flow back and forth from what's happening when they visit here to how they engage with us when they're at home.
And you have free Wi-Fi throughout the museum too, so you can stay online
Well, that's
while
one
you're
of
here.
the most exciting things that we did. We introduced something called the Explorer, which is a handheld device, which gives you turn-by-turn directions. This is a big museum, so occasionally somebody might get lost, or they might really suddenly want to find the food court, or the restroom, or even the shop, or the dinosaurs. So we're really using this at the fullest level possible, and it changes the visit.
Obviously kids have all these great resources online, so the idea is letting them go out and kind of teach themselves to some degree, right?
I think self-directed learning along with directed learning is optimal. I mean, you want to explore. This is an institution that is about exploration and discovery. So of course we want our visitors to explore. It's not so bad to get lost. It really isn't. It's part of the adventure. And the same thing is true in science, you know. It's not bad to fail. Sometimes failure is what leads to the real invention. So all of these things are part of the experience here.
So we've been learning a lot about the STEM disciplines as we've been traveling around the U.S. and learning about how kids are learning. What sort of activities do you have here focused on those specific sciences and educations and engineering, that sort of thing?
That's a question that people in my shoes really like to hear because, you know, we're confronting a crisis nationally in science education. And it's really major in terms of affecting workforce preparation. Even people who are unemployed, there might be some jobs, but they're not really prepared to take them. And so that's very, very important. It's also about our country's global competitiveness, and even our national security. And we rank very, very, in fact, embarrassingly low internationally. So we think a lot about that here because we have the resources. We have the scientific resources, we have the educational resources to address teaching in science, technology, and engineering and math, and it all comes together in a way. And we're doing a lot of programs in training teachers, and that's a very important piece of this, is getting trained teachers who really know how to teach science, and not to teach science just as a textbook, but to understand the scientific method, which is both more interesting and actually more accurate as a representation of science. The idea that we ask questions, then we test hypotheses, and ultimately we come up with a theory which is in fact the highest level of proof. And young people love this. It's a great way to engage young people because actually it's a detective story. What they're really doing is assembling evidence, and training teachers to do that is very important. Also, because we have collections, we have real materials which really inform how people learn and their interest in learning. And so when you take these resources, you're giving people access to real science, real data, real things and specimens, and training people in how to utilize it. So we think this is critically important, and we have, you know, we're training about 4,000 teachers a year in science, online and on-site, and at the same time we are the #1 destination for school groups in the city of New York, so that's a lot of kids and a lot of teachers.
That's great. Thank you again so much for taking some time out for us. Now we're going to take a look at another STEM discipline, computer programming.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of people are trying to make a more essential part of the curriculum. Speaking to something that you mentioned, that, you know, there's a lot of job openings, but not a lot of qualified candidates who necessarily know how to code in this country, which is why a lot of those jobs are currently going overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So we spoke to somebody at code.org about an initiative to make that a more essential part of the curriculum.
Absolutely, and also went to the Department of Education to learn a little bit more about some government programs in that area too.
Yep.
I was 13 when I first got access to A computer. My parents bought me a Macintosh in 1984 when I was 8 years old.
I was in 6th grade.
I learned to code in college.
Code.org is now just a few months old, and it's a brand new effort to promote computer science education. It's a subject that's very much a passion of mine and something that a lot of people in Silicon Valley care about, but this is the first time that we've really brought together some of the biggest names and biggest minds in Silicon Valley to kind of join forces behind a simple message that computer science is a integral, very key part of education for children of all ages, but it's also easier than you might realize, more fun than you might realize, and more impactful than you might realize. The computer industry is one of the best things that's ever happened to the US economy, yet we stand to completely lose that advantage if we don't teach our own kids how to become computer programmers. In China, computer programming is required for graduation. Every single student who graduates from high school is required to learn computer programming. In America, however, only 1 out of 10 schools even offers computer science, and only 1 out of 50 students takes it. And that's setting us up for, in a few years, we won't have enough people to fill those jobs. As a country, it would just be an embarrassment if we've created this amazingly fast-growing industry, yet don't have enough people with the skills to actually to employ. That's the reality unless we can change courses. And all it takes to change courses is to start bringing computer science into the schools. We're making great progress. May 14th, the governor of Washington signed a new bill that changed the state graduation requirements to include computer science. And this was a direct result of our lobbying effort. For me, actually, computer programming taught me how to think. For every kid, whether they intend to become an accountant or a doctor or whatever you want to do in life, I think studying computer science early on really helps with your brain development. In particular, I think for girls, it helps you feel empowered and feel confident that you can solve problems, or that if there's something you don't like, you can fix it or change it, or if there's something you wish you had, you can create it, because it's a very creative field. It's not like I'm doing geometry proofs. I'm making things. That feeling of empowerment, I think, is something that every kid can benefit from. There's a few great platforms out there for learning how to code. One is Codecademy, one is Khan Academy, there's Scratch, there's CodeHS, there's Tinker with a Y, and there's Blockly. Each of them is great and has its own strengths. But with the new ones, as well as Codecademy, what's cool is that you can basically sign up and go through a sort of a step-by-step process of gradually learning more. The specific language you're teaching is less important than which concepts are you teaching. A repeat loop is a concept that every language, every computer programming language has the same concept. They just call it different things, or it's slightly different words or so on. So I think what's important to standardize is which conceptual techniques are different kids learning at different ages. But which platform or language you're using to bring that forward, that could vary. We're aiming for more scalable solutions. The school says, okay, I want to have an after-school club, and I've heard about Scratch, or I've heard about this, but I don't know the basics, like what type of computers should I buy? Do we need a teacher, or can the math teacher just do it? Just helping them go through that with an online step-by-step process of, here's what you need to do, and for 5th graders, here's the curriculum we recommend. For high school, this other curriculum or different platform. As well as we might be creating some curriculum ourselves. So we're basically looking at where is there a great solution, and if so, that's what we'll just recommend that, or can we improve the solution and work with them to do something they weren't already doing. Do I predict that it'll become as ensconced in American education? I hope so, because I think it merits that. Like learning how to read, there was once a time when learning to read was considered to be the elite, provenance of only the sort of mysterious few, either the very wealthy or the religious, elite, basically. And ordinary people were illiterate, and they thought this must be a genius to know. But obviously, you don't have to be a genius to learn how to read. You start simple. You start with the ABCs, and then words, and then sentences, and eventually you can go as far as you want. And same thing is true with computer programming. You can start with the simplest things, and you can decide how far you want to go.
When I was in 7th grade, my junior high, they bought like 3 Apple IIe's that they put in a special room inside the library, a windowless room deep inside the library. And you had to sign up and then get checked out on the Apple IIe's before they would allow you to go in and play Castle Wolfenstein or whatever the hell it was that kids did on those Apple IIe's. And I wanted to be in that room because it was a room that had an exclusionary policy. You weren't allowed to go in the room unless you had done the following things, and I wanted to be in that room, of course, and I did not want to do those things. I did not want to check out on the Apple IIe. I didn't even really want to play Castle Wolfenstein. I just wanted to be in that room. But then it became apparent that if I was going to stay competitive with my preteen cohorts, I was going to need a computer. Everyone was talking about computers. This was the early 80s. And so my mother, who was a computer programmer, thought that in order to help me, she needed to get us a computer. And so she bought the very first IBM PC with 64K, laden with 64Ks. And I sat at this machine and I tried to care about it and to learn how to program in basic language and to do the little random generator that made little lengths of line and little notes, and it would go to infinity. And I did that, and I went, right, I do not want to be a computer programmer. And then I realized that it was a typewriter too. And there was a program called WordStar that enabled me to process words, process them, not just type them, but then process them. And so I started writing stories about spies. And then I fell in love with computers because they could process my spy stories. And then I realized you could write dirty words. You could write dirty stories.
I'm Richard Collada. I lead the Office of Education Technology here at the U.S. Department of Education. The Office of Education Technology sets the vision for how technology is going to be used, should be used to improve learning and to support teachers across the country. For a long time, people have said, wouldn't it be great if every student could learn what they need to learn when they need to learn it? Well, that's fine, but if you're doing paper and pencil and trying to do it, that's impossible. That's very, very hard to do. Once you have technology in place that can say, hey, we can help based on student performance, based on how they're, questions that they're getting right or wrong or what they're doing, help tee up for you what the path should be for all these different learners, right? That's phenomenal. There are schools right now that are doing a great job of leveraging technology to personalize learning. Students log in, they get to see exactly where they're at, what areas they've done well in, where they're struggling. They can pick from a variety of different activities to meet those needs. The teachers see a grade book that looks very different. It looks like a dashboard, and they see all the students where they're at in the progress because they could all be moving at different pace, their level of performance, and the icon changing colors based on how they're feeling that day. If they feel bored, they can select that and tell the teacher that. So there's these great sort of models across the country where technology is being used to just change that learning experience. So how do we do a better job of sharing that? And we don't do a good job of that today. And so there are some good conversations underway about how to do that. There are some people that are starting to look at how to do that, but we need to do a much better job of saying this worked well here in this area and may work well if you're trying to do something similar. Or this didn't work well and you shouldn't try that. We should personalize the learning experience for teachers as well. Right? If I'm a physics teacher in a school, I may be the only person teaching physics in that school. So sitting around in professional development with the math teacher and the Spanish teacher or whatever just may not be very helpful for me. So if we can help teachers build virtual learning networks where they're connecting with each other, then I can be connected with the best physics teachers across the country, even if they're not in my school or in my state. To sort of live sync and collaborate with those people independent of where you live, that's really powerful. And so again, a student shouldn't be disadvantaged by the zip code they live in, right? They should be able to have that access because technology provides it. Another thing is making sure we have the developer community involved, right? So how do you get people that can build these solutions, build the new types of tools to empower the next generation of learning? How do we get them participating in this? having a whole bunch of devices sitting around doesn't guarantee that things get better in a school. Right? You got to know how to leverage those and how to use them in really powerful ways.
Right now we are in the Design and Innovation Lab here at LeapFrog, where incredibly talented creative people spend their day thinking about what's important for kids, how to design specifically for kids, and how to really capitalize on the play patterns and the experiences that we know kids want to have. My name is Dr. Jody Sherman-Lavas, and I head up the learning team here at LeapFrog. The learning team is responsible for actually designing all of the learning content that goes into all of our platforms, whether it is our books, our DVDs, our toys, or our digital games. We have 5 people on the learning team, and we all have a master's degree or PhD in child development, education, or design and technology, really focused on children and their learning and their interaction with media.
My name is John Barber, and I'm the CEO of LeapFrog Enterprises. The test of a really great education product is, what do you do when a kid gets it wrong? Right, nobody really thinks about that, so it then comes down to your personal philosophy. My viewpoint is, we're teaching children to think. We're teaching children to solve the problems, to be inquisitive. It's interesting, technology allows you to do things in education today that could never be done before. The ultimate learning experience is to have a private tutor, right? Children who are taught with a private tutor are comparable to the 98th percentile of kids who get traditional education. That's profound. The problem is, who can afford to have a private tutor? And therefore, what we're trying to do is we're trying to use technology to create personalized learning journeys. Because kids learn best when they're being taught at their level. An electronic book, like any book, is a combination of art and copy. We've developed our Ultra eBooks with 3 levels of copy. So as the child is reading the book and they're solving the problems as they go through it, if they're doing really well against those, the game automatically feeds a higher level of copy to the kid. If they're not doing really well, it drops down a level.
Listen to where the letter sounds are hiding.
Kids are a huge part of the development process here at LeapFrog. We have an on-site kid lab. We have over 1,000 kids come in every year where they test the products at various stages of development to make sure that they're fun, that they are appropriate, that they're engaging and compelling, and that kids are actually understanding the instructions, they're moving through the curriculum.
And we'll try some writing, okay? Let's see. Nice job.
The Leap Reader is fantastic. It's a brand new product really designed to address literacy as a whole solution.
Drag along the green line until it ends.
We're taking the infrared camera, the dot-enabled pages, we're bringing that technology into a form factor that kids and parents are comfortable with, and that is the physical book. Not only can kids learn to read with a physical book, but we also have special LeapFrog learning paper that the camera in the Leap Reader can detect exactly where the child is on the page so that we can provide meaningful feedback. We know that literacy is so much more than just learning how to read. It's about learning through listening, including oral comprehension, storytelling, vocabulary development, as well as writing.
We're going to go through a journey here with technology and education, where people are going to take education that's proven, and they're going to take technology and they're going to put the two together, they're going to smash them together, and they're going to put it in front of kids. And it'll work a little bit, because you know what? It's a new, cool, sexy tool, right? The question is it going to change children's lives in the long term? That's a lot tougher. And that's where I think the content comes into play. How you make it personalized, right? How you actually do something different.
I don't know about you, buddy, but I feel smarter than I did at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, this is really exciting. I feel like we're kind of at a crossroads for education right now, and everything's kind of being reshapen around the technology that classes are using.
Yeah, it's exciting to think where we're going to be in 5 or 10 years.
Absolutely. It's exciting to think about all the kids who are going to look back on this episode and laugh about all the antiquated technologies we were talking about.
But while we're here, we should thank some folks who made this episode possible.
Sure.
Google was very patient with us. We also spoke with the folks at LeapFrog and Apple.
Yep. OLPC, Department of Education.
Code.org.
Adafruit, SparkFun. Want to thank these moose back here for being so patient.
Incredibly well-trained moose. And of course, the American Museum of Natural History, where we are right now. It's an amazing place. If you haven't been lately, you should definitely come by.